Alright, so in this video, we are going to be leveling our CNC router wasteboard. This is going to help ensure that our cut depth is perfect across the entirety of our table. So let's go and have a look at some of the bits to get this job done. There are 1,000,001 router bits for CNC applications. In order to level off your CNC router table, well, you could use a bit like this. This is a two-flute straight cutter. I love these bits. It gives a really good clean finish, but we are kind of limited to how much step over we can do. The smaller the bit, well, the less material we are going to be taking out in every instance. This, for example, is a V-bit. If we wanted to flatten this table out with a V-bit, we'd be here until next year, or possibly even 2030 by the time it's done. This particular guy, which is a three-flute upcut spiral bit, but in truth, we don't have to use any of these. You are going to start to get into these types of bits. This is one of the cheapest variations of these router bits that we can use to flatten a table. You don't necessarily have to rush out and go and spend 3,000 Rand on a very fancy CNC bit to level your table out. You can get started with something as simple as this, which is going to cost you about 130 bucks, depending on where you're buying it from. So I'm going to get this guy loaded. We're going to create a file, and I'm going to show you how we level off our bed to start cutting with absolute precision. Okay. So we have created a file which is the same size of our actual working material for our actual bed itself, in which case we are going to be using some MDF, which has a standard dimension of 2750 by 1830. I've created a file which is in fact slightly larger than our actual bed material itself, because we need to accommodate for our bits. We want to make sure that our bit actually runs off the edge of our table so that we can get this pocketing operation set up perfectly. Now I need to go to our pocketing profile. I need to make sure that I've got the relevant bit selected, in which case we are going to be using this very cheap endmill, which is 12 millimeters. Now that is selected, I need to make sure that we are going to remove some material. You don't have to go very deep. You might need to even do this twice, depending on how uneven the surface of your floor is. But 1 millimeter is quite a good way to start. Now, all I need to do is click calculate, and there we go. We've generated a very basic toolpath for leveling out the bed. The great thing is, if you own an AM.CO router, you don't even need to use your software to do this. You can simply do this on the machine for your absolute convenience. Now that we've done this, all I need to do is actually go and save this profile, and let's get ready to level out our machine. And I'm going to call this level, just to keep things easy. So now we've done the file, now we need to move across to the machine and start the process of doing this setup. First thing we need to do is make sure that our bit is actually touching our waste material. I'm going to use a little piece of paper, and I'm slowly going to step down up until the point the router bit makes contact with the actual piece of paper. There we go. I've just made contact with the paper. I'm going to do it again just to make 100% sure. Now I know that we are touching the top of the paper. That is going to be our new Z-height coordinates. Now we know that our router bit is going to be touching our material. We are pretty much close to this edge. I want to push this over a little bit more. There we go. Now I'm going to come across to the other side, and I'm going to rotate the router bit. And there we go. I have applied some offset within our working area, and now I'm confident that we are going to be able to flatten the entirety of our sheet goods. Now let's get ready to rock and roll and start to level out our table. So I put the USB in, and now we need to load up our file. So let me scroll through. And whoops, there we go. Level. Cool stuff. Now that I've got this, I'm simply going to press 1 to load, and we are pretty much ready to hit the play button. So let's go and do exactly that and hit the play button. In this instance, we started to take off material and then nothing. And this is the process of trying to level out our bed. Because we need to remember that the floor is never perfectly flat. And if the floor isn't flat, well, then your machine is not flat either. Okay guys, so we stopped the machine right here because I want to show you exactly what has been taking place. You can see that this has been surfaced here. We obviously haven't finished because we put this job on pause. We are trying to make sure that our bed is level. This end of the table is exactly 1 millimeter, but I've been checking as this machine has been going because I'm trying to make an assessment so that I'm aware of what is happening. It turns out that this side of the machine is a little bit higher. I took a measurement earlier and that was about 2.5 mils. So definitely we're a little bit higher on this end of the table than we are over here. But as you can see, the surface is starting to look really nice and clean. There are currently small little lines that are on this table. Might not be so visible, but that's going to bring us to the second stage of setting up our CNC machine. While this bed has been leveled, we are now basically ready to take the next big step in turning our AM machine into an absolute monster cutter with high levels of precision. So for this step within the process, we've jumped across to the AM.CO Router unit because this is a whole lot easier to explain this on. And I've gone ahead and I've cut a piece of material to absolutely exaggerate what you might experience. You will notice that there are some lines over here. Now we've exaggerated this on this little machine because we want to try and give you the biggest visual reference possible. We've used exactly the same router bit that I've used on the big machine. The distance that we step over every single time is about 90%. The bigger your surfacing bit, the easier it is to see these results. And you will notice that when we look at this, not only are we ramping slightly on our material, so in other words, it's shallow here, very deep here. If we were to think of this as being one big router bit, we would be able to see somewhere our router bit is either going to be leaning backwards or forwards, and in fact, it could be leaning to the left or to the right. This is what we want to fix. And I'm going to show you how to do this very quickly on the CNC Router, CNC Router. So in this example, we've already set up to illustrate that in fact, we have a bit of a lean going this direction. Now, even though we're showing you on the small machine, this basically applies for all CNC routers. Now, because we have identified which way we are leaning, this side is very deep, this side is very shallow, we can easily be able to correlate that we would need to loosen these bottom bolts and start to turn this ever so slightly. Now you will need some shims and we're going to follow the process like this. I'm just going to show you with some paper because it's going to do exactly the same thing to illustrate whether it's right or wrong. And if you were to imagine we were leaning backwards, in order to fix this, we will need to push this forward and put something in behind you like a brass or steel shim. I'm going to use some paper for this example and we're going to come back and do a test cut and see if this is coming out looking better. Now that we've got our paper shim offsetting our router spindle itself, we're going to reset this up and try and cut again to see if we're generating better results. So there you have it. We have successfully been able to fine-tune our CNC router spindle and making sure that everything is accurate and the cutting is looking good. But if you get stuck, you can always reach out to Machine Africa and set your appointment, and they will come out to come and assist you further.
AI may eventually take over, but what's for certain is that smart machines are already operating all over the world right now. So stay ahead with AM.CO.za. For 11 years, they've been the leader in CNC and printing machines like CNC routers, large format printers, vinyl cutters, laser cutters, plasma cutters, DTF printers, and many more. Visit am.co.za showrooms in Sunny Rock, Joburg, and Montague Gardens, Cape Town, or WhatsApp hi to 060 600 6000 for more. am.co.za. Achievement matters.